Welcome to PCOM Perspectives, where we discuss news, events, research, and other topics impacting our campuses and communities. Join us as we share our PCOM perspectives. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Dr. Jay Feldstein, and today we're talking with PCOM alumnus Zach Murphy, PA class of 2020, and President and CEO of Ninja Nerd, an online learning platform for students and clinicians in medicine and science. Zach attended Misericordia University, where he received his Bachelor of Science degree in biology and a minor in chemistry before pursuing his master's as a physician's assistant at PCOM. While working as a professional tutor at Northampton Community College, Zach noticed students consistently struggling with the same medical concepts and decided to partner with his best friends Rob and Kristen to create Ninja Nerd, a comprehensive resource offering content, study templates, and digital illustrations to address the most common questions faced by physician assistant students. Today, Zach and I will discuss Ninja Nerd's origin story, his experience with virtual learning, and benefits of a hybrid education model in medical education. Welcome, Zach.
Hey, man, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me today.
Oh, thanks for coming. So I got a couple questions for you.
All right.
So what was the initial vision behind Ninja Nerd, and how has that vision evolved as your platform has grown?
So I think you kind of hit on a little bit of that, is that we just saw a potential need. It was really a passion project for us. We were tutors. It was at this school, Northampton Community College, and I'd say our primary population was like nursing students. It was any kind of pre-med student who was getting ready to venture into a graduate level program. And there was a lot of things that we did: anatomy, physiology, biology, chemistry. And so it was a very large tutoring center. People could come in and it was free. So it was just a part of your natural tuition that if you came, you get free service. But we found that there was a lot of people and there was just not enough tutors and enough time. And so some people wouldn't get the amount of time and really the focus that they deserved. And on top of that, a lot of non-traditional students. So people who unfortunately had kids, had a lot of other responsibilities, jobs where they couldn't come in the time that the tutoring center was open. And so we saw a potential need to say, hey, let's help out some of these students who are getting the necessary help. And we just did it because I like to teach, Rob likes film. And so we said, hey, we have an opportunity to take what we do on a daily basis where I repeat the same thing a lot, but we let it offer to those individuals who just don't have access as much. And so we did that. We posted things on YouTube, and we didn't expect it to become viewed all over the world in places like India, Australia, England, it just all over. And so it became a very, very large growing platform pretty quickly. And so we just didn't change our goals with that. We just kept doing it because we had time. We were students. I was a PA, so I was trying to get into PA school. Rob was getting into PT school, and his wife Kristen was working towards nursing school. So we had a lot of free time. We just did and made as many videos as possible to help out that need. But then while we were kind of coming out of, I'd say, our graduate programs, I graduated from PA school, Rob was a PT, Kristen was a nurse, we had less time, but then COVID hit. And so a lot of things shifted. It went from being where it was all in class to Zoom meetings. Everybody was kind of learning in any way that they could get their hands on a supplemental resource. And that's where I think a lot of people flocked to Ninja Nerd. And that's where we saw just this tremendous, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was somewhere around, we gained 1 million subscribers within a few months.
Whoa.
And so it was a massive growth. And at that point, we saw a potential need, and we saw something that we were good at, we were all passionate about, we loved it. Not that we didn't like our clinical careers, but we just knew that this impact was just much greater. So that's when we decided to venture out, and we actually left our clinical jobs and committed all of our time to making Ninja Nerd. And we just started off as like videos, which is our prime way that people view us. It also ventured out into other resources. So we offer a lot of high yield notes, a lot of illustrations. We're incorporating more animations into our videos as well, and a lot of Q banks. And so it just started off as something that was just wanting to help people, and it's never changed, but it's grown into actually more of a business model, and I think a global education platform.
So have you evolved into kind of MCAT prep, nursing licensing exams, board exams, COMLEX, all the board examinations for all the various medical professions?
That's what we're trying to venture into. So obviously one of the things I think we were most well known for currently, and I think, by most students, is we're really helpful in that didactic time year, your first, second
Okay.
year of medical school, first year of PA school, where you're kind of really more in understanding the anatomy, physiology, the pathophysiology. We've just in the past year and a half really started to become a little bit more known for the clinical aspect of
Okay.
things. And so we're trying to build that hope in people that, hey, you can count on us. But in the background, yes, we are developing some board exam courses, particularly for the USMLE.
Okay.
So the step 2.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes Ninja Nerd lectures so effective and widely appreciated among students globally?
So I try to look at things and make videos and work on topics in a way that I think best helps me to learn. And I just hope that in that other people will feel the same. One of the ways that I felt like I just didn't learn, and it's nothing against other people who may learn the same way, but whenever you're in a lecture hall and you have a PowerPoint and just there's a plethora of information on it and someone's just reading off of it, and there's not a lot of back and forth, there's not a lot of learning along as you go, there's not a lot of visual, pictorial kind of illustrations to make sense of.
So obviously you're a visual learner.
I'm a very visual learner, and I like a lot of questioning. I feel like that's where you learn a lot, is when you're just having the opportunity to say, hey, so let's kind of see if you actually understand this or if you're just memorizing it. And that's where I kind of look to is how can I incorporate visual learning? How can I take a lecture where you actually learn along with me? Most of the board should be empty and you're going to follow along with me. I think it forces them to have to pay attention. Because if you don't, you miss a lot of the pieces of information along the way. So I think that's one thing. I also try and make sure that I ask a lot of questions along during the video to help to kind of invoke some thought-provoking kind of concepts. And I think the other thing is I try to just keep it relaxed. I try to be funny. I try to be the approachable person who's wearing a backwards hat. And, unfortunately I have some tattoos, but that I think unfortunately. I think sometimes it may intimidate, but I think for the most part, I think people feel just a little bit more relaxed. Like, hey, I'm not kidding. This is what somebody says. It just feels like a bro is just trying to teach me science and medicine.
All right.
And I don't know if that really helps out, but that's something that's kind of been told to me. But I just try to look at it more as how can I help a person start from a beginning point to an end point, keep them intrigued the whole time. And I think it's following along step by step, not hitting them with a volume of information at once, keeping it visual, invoking a lot of questions to think about things, and then just trying to be a person that, I think one of the most important things has joy and passion about what he does.
Well, you're authentic.
Yeah. I think that's the key thing. If you have somebody who is very monotone or they're kind of just, it's a part of their, no offense, just a part of their normal lecture process, I think it can get mundane. I think it can get easy to get lost in that. I try to make sure that every lecture I do, I try to keep a degree of enthusiasm and passion. And I think that that's infectious. And I think people want to buy into that. I think that's some of the reasons why Ninja Nerd has kind of become what it is today.
So what advice would you give to current and prospective PA students navigating feelings of imposter syndrome and self-doubt?
Oh, yeah, this is a really tough one because I feel like I felt the self-doubt, which I know they kind of go hand in hand, but I felt the self-doubt very heavily when I was a PA student. And I think it's one of our professors in PA school said, you're learning this information. It's like you're drinking from a fire hydrant. It's so much information in a small amount of time. Like we would learn all of our cardiology block and we would have to be tested on it in about 2 weeks. And so it's so much information and you can't be expected to say, I'm going to know everything about cardiology. So when I go out into the real world, I'm going to remember everything I learned in that 2-week block. And so I think one of the most important things for me looking back, if I could give some degree of advice, is be okay with not knowing everything. Don't feel bad that you're going to go out into the clinical world. And sometimes you're going to feel a little like you don't belong. It's very scary. I think one of the most important things is that medicine and learning in itself, like especially medicine, it's evergreen. So even though you think you know something's going to come along that makes you kind of say, oh, I guess I really didn't know that. Because every patient is different. Not every patient is a cookie cutter kind of like textbook presentation. So I think that's one thing is just be okay with whenever you're going through school, medical school, PA school, whatever it is, you're getting so much information at once, it's impossible for you to remember it all. And I know that for me, when I went into the clinical world, one of the biggest things I felt right off the get-go is I would look at people, for example, when I became a PA, I worked in the neuro ICU. There was a PA, he was the senior one, and he'd been doing it for about 10 years. And he knew everything. It was just like, I would look at him and be like, I'll never get to that level. I'm not going to be like that. I'm never going to be that good, because I would struggle on just basic things. And one of the things that my attending, who had kind of been there for a long time, taught him a lot, is he said, do you think he was, this good from day one? No, it took him 10, 11 years to get to this point. And I think that's the most important thing for a current PA student or someone who's just venturing into the clinical world, is it's going to take time. You're going to be uncomfortable, but I think you need to embrace that discomfort. You need to experience those failures and those fears to become great and to actually learn and be like this guy was to me, like an idol in the sense of like, I want to be as good as he is in that field.
So what is it, Malcolm Gladwell, you need 10,000 hours?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's the key thing, is that, the only way that we learn, unfortunately, is by mistakes. And I think it's important to make those mistakes, but don't regret them. Try to take it as an opportunity to learn. And I know that that's probably very easier, it's very easy to say that when, than to be in that experience. But in my time as a clinician and my time as a PA student, one of the things I just felt is that I would fill with so much self-doubt, because I just felt like I wouldn't know what I needed to know when I got into the clinical rotations. And I didn't, but I learned a lot during that. I asked a lot of questions. I made a lot of mistakes that I could actually experience some, oh, that's what I should have done differently. And then when I got to the clinical world, I was hit with this massive fear. I actually had to work in a neuro ICU right out of PA school. I got some orientation time, but I had to work overnights, and there was no resident, there was no fellow, and there was no attending physician on the premises.
Welcome to medicine.
Exactly. And that's trial by fire. It was so scary. And I remember having patients on my overnight shifts. I'm very new, who were having ICP crises, who are having seizures. And I'm like, how am I supposed to go in and do this? But I think the key thing is that I had someone I could depend on if I needed to. I'm going to call my attending. I'm going to present my case. I'm going to say what I think I should do. And he's going to be there to help to guide me in those tough times, to say, that's good, do that. Or no, don't do this. And here's why, go this route. And those are the times where you're faced with absolute fear and you're scared out of your mind. But I think those are the things that make you remember it. And next time when you're in that experience, you know what to do. And I think that's how you build confidence, honestly.
Oh, perfect. So I'm sure you've got a couple of questions for me.
Yeah. So I think one of the first things is obviously Ninja Nerd is an online medical platform. I think that it's being utilized by students. But I want to know from you, how do you see online medical platforms, for example, like Ninja Nerd, being integrated into higher institutions' curriculum kind of moving forward?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the one that I was most familiar with before I was introduced to Ninja Nerd is Osmosis.
Yeah. That's a great one.
There's a lot of platforms out there. So what generally happens, and I've been in my role for 11 years, and Dean Veit is provost, and Dean's been doing this for close to 30, is they come and go, right? So the newest one tends to be the hottest in sliced bread, and the students will migrate.
Yeah.
Osmosis is great for these 2 years. Oh no, there's a new one out, and they're not free.
Yeah.
So you have, some students, will pay for it out of pocket. Some students can't afford it. So you get some disparity there in educational resources due to finances. So we try and help out, especially with board prep, at least providing it to everybody, because you can go crazy basically with online courses.
I think that honestly makes a lot of sense, because for me, being a student, we would be offered, usually it would be a part of like your syllabus, and you could say, here's some additional resources. And there's a plethora of them. There's things like you said, Osmosis, there's online med ed, there's, I think boards and beyond. Kaplan. There's so many, and they all sort of, like you said, very expensive. And I think sometimes you can buy into that and say, oh, I'm going to get this. And then you end up spending so much money. And I think sometimes it doesn't provide that bang for its buck, or it's not truly as helpful as we were hoping. But I think that definitely makes sense. And I think it's trying to find what you think is going to help the student to succeed and at the ultimate goal, pass that board.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense. Another question I have is, obviously with COVID, it kind of pushed us out of kind of a completely we were in the classroom, and then we kind of saw some more of those Zoom meetings and classes. And I think people had to depend on things like other online resources. But I think that maybe pushed us to a lot more of these hybrid education models. So what are your thoughts on hybrid education models, and how do you think that they will continue to kind of evolve over time?
So this is my favorite question out of the three, because hybrid education has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. So when I was a medical student, gave close to 43 years ago, I did hybrid medical education in my second year of medical school. I didn't come to class. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had the note service. So the
Yeah,
note
okay.
service replaced online. So we would, somebody in class was responsible for notes, and we had the Xerox machines, and still have the purple ink on my hands, and somebody took the notes, and people would collate the notes, and you get the notes at the end of the week. And depending on who the lectures were that you so accurately described as reading a slide. Well, I lived at home. I had to commute 40 minutes each way. That's 80 minutes a day. That's 400 minutes a week that I'm wasting in the car.
Yes.
I could use that time much more effectively reading.
I agree.
I did hybrid education. I didn't go to class. For some class, obviously OMM, labs, everything like that, I would be there. But for certain classes, I was hybrid. Now COVID pushed it to the limit. Because we had to be remote. And that just took us to a level where I think everybody started to see, wow, this is a pretty good education model. And I think it will continue to evolve. Maybe you'll come back, we'll do a whole session on AI in education. So when you start combining AI in hybrid, then you've got a whole new ballgame. So now, are you a visual learner? Are you a tactile learner? Are you an auditory learner? And how do you learn best? And how do you study best? And what AI augmentation and hybrid education combo with courses like you're designing, how do we put that all together to get the best outcome for a student?
That's what I see as the future, I think, is a lot of AI integration with other online medical platforms or institutions.
Have you started to explore that?
We are, but it's one of those areas where, when you get into the development aspects, there's so many things that we have to do that unfortunately this is just, it's not at the top of our list with everything else that we have going on. But yeah, we are looking into trying to integrate AI into a lot of things that an engineer does. I'd say I use it more as a way of maybe increasing efficiency in some of the things that I'm preparing to make videos or to generate notes or Q banks and things like that. But integrating into the website and having it help a lot of students, because it does have a lot of great features, I think is going to be a huge thing in the future. And I think it's going to change the way students learn significantly.
Yeah, for sure.
The last question I have for you is, as a proud PCOM graduate of the PA program, I'd love to hear how you see the roles of PAs changing in the next 5 to 10 years, and how PCOM is planning to help those future PA graduates prepare for any of these changes.
No, that's a really easy question. The challenge here is, I tend to look at it in the overall context of healthcare and how healthcare is changing, and how healthcare is going to be delivered, and it's going to affect PAs and, physicians, everybody. All we can do is try to prepare people the best we can. I see more specialization for PAs. I see the evolution of potential PA residencies, whether they maybe not as extensive as medical residencies and GME, but maybe it's 6 months or a year. And I see much more specialization coming down the pike. It would be wonderful if we could be in the design process of that. But it's like every other field. How do we prepare our students the best way we can with experiential learning, hybrid learning, so they get the best outcome? Also, with AI, I just read an article today that insurance may only cover AI and provider extensors for primary care. Like you get an AI with an NP and PA for primary care. Anything more complicated than that, then you go to a physician. So that becomes the screen in the new world. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. Probably is not. We'll see. When you think about it, a lot of what we do, physician, PA, NP, is driven through clinical algorithms.
Absolutely.
Okay, I mean, you're running the differential diagnosis in your head. I mean, 40 years ago, there was a journal called Patient Care, and all it was just printed algorithms. You have patient have this chief complaint, have this symptoms, have this lab test, take this Google Expressway and here's your diagnosis. But once AI becomes free thinking, then we're into a whole new world.
And I think like the thing you're saying is the residencies, because I think what's one of the things that, when you look at medical doctors, they have more of that time in the clinical world to have these things like residencies and to learn. I think PAs, they have that. And I think it's whenever they get into clinical experience where they're, hey, like I'm actually working in the real world, you get that real life experience. And I think that's great. But I think that you're saying maybe having that gap in between from when you graduate PA school to the point where they're actually going to go into that specialty of choice, I think it would build a little bit more confidence. And I think it might help with things like self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Just, you're still going to have doubts no matter what, but I think it would have lessened it a little bit, built me a little bit of confidence to have some experience in the area and say, yeah, I know what to do now. At least I have at least an inclination of what's the next step, as compared to my natural reaction is to pick up the phone and call my attending and say, hey, what do I do? No, I think I got to be a clinician, have these experiences, have some basic knowledge and kind of gone through the paces to make the right call and to present myself and say, here's what I got. Here's the history. Here's the physical exam. Here's all the steps I've taken. This is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And I think that builds a lot of confidence, especially between the physician and the physician assistant or NP's relationship, building that confidence as well. And I think that helps out a lot in making a job for a PA a lot more enjoyable and desirable, and to stick at that profession a lot longer too.
I think you'll see a lot more team care going forward,
Yeah.
especially in the primary care settings.
Yep.
It's team care. Well, Zach, I just want to thank you for today, for joining us, and for your commitment to making a difference in academic and clinical advancement for students worldwide. You make us PCOM proud. And I'm Dr. Jay Feldstein, and this has been PCOM Perspectives.